Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 335 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by jaysfromthecouch.com. And we've got a great episode for you. We're going to talk about some Blue Jays trade deadline stories to watch. I've already messed up. Anyway, let's just keep going. I'm your host, as always, Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. Like I said, we've got a great episode for you. We're going to talk about some trade deadline stories and things like that, if I can ever say that phrase again properly. But before I do, I want to say a couple of other things properly. First of all, I want to remind you that you can join our Jays from the Couch, Blue Jays Talk for All Facebook group on the old Facebook machine. It's still recognizable, unlike the old Twitter. But you can join free for everybody. Just join. You love talking about your Blue Jays. You love your Facebook. Combine them both with us at the Jays from the Couch, Blue Jays Talk for All Facebook group. As well, I'm going to continue to plug it. We have been on a mission to end the presence of ALS in this this horrible disease has taken a lot of lives, and it continues to wreak havoc on a lot of people and their families. And we are trying to do our part to end that by we have our fundraising campaign where you can make a charitable tax-deductible donation at support.alsevents.ca/Jays from the Couch. Any amount you see fit, just throw it at us, and we will. That goes directly to the ALS Society of Canada. It helps fund research and all of the work they do there, supporting the families that are suffering through this disease. Or if you would rather get a little, something extra for your money, some swag, if you will, you can head to our Redbubble shop where you can pick up Jays from the Couch merchandise, Jays from the Couch radio. We've got Sunny Side of the Dome, the On-Fact Circle, a whole bunch of stuff there for you. And all of the profits from each of your purchases goes directly to the ALS Society of Canada. We're not keeping a penny for us. We're sending it all to them so that hopefully we can get rid of this disease one day. So please consider that. Thank you in advance for your support. All right, we've got a great episode this week. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, I encourage you to send in your comments and your thoughts as we make our way through this episode 335. To help me do so, we've got, first of all, host of the new Blue Jays Review, the feckless wonder himself, Steve Feck. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Shaun. I just want to give a shout out to my buddy Seamus. He is in the final stages of ALS. As we do this, you and I have both been through this too many times, but he never misses the podcast. And even though he lives here in the States, he's really respectful of the fact of all that our campaign does for ALS Canada. So like Shaun said, it doesn't matter the amount. You would be amazed at what these ALS associations do. So please do
absolutely. Consider. Thank you, Seamus, for watching and listening all the time. We do appreciate it. Hang in there, buddy. Hang in there. And as well, joining us, host of Sunny Side of the Dome, the one and only Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Shaun. Good evening, Steve.
All right, we've got a great episode. I'm actually looking forward to this. We've each got I don't know that it wasn't planned this way, but each of us has a topic that we brought to the table, and all of them tie into the trade deadline, which of course is on everybody's mind. So it'll be a great episode. But of course, before we do that, we just wouldn't be doing our jobs if we missed out on our MLB Minute. The MLB Minute is just 1 minute each, going around the horn, talking about a particular topic, and we thought we'd keep it consistent this week and looking around at potential Major League Baseball trade rumors and stuff like that. Not necessarily specifically Toronto Blue Jays, but it might be. But one thing that we noticed that kind of stands out to us from around the week last week in Major League Baseball. So we get 1 minute. At the end of 1 minute, we get a funky little music thing here that says, "You're done. Please stop talking." So maybe Steve, we'll start with you. Your 1 minute begins now.
Remember Alex Anthopoulos, Blue Jay fans? You know, the GM who's solid drafting and proactive trading, built two most exciting Jays teams since the World Championship teams back in the 90s. Well, AA has moved on, as we all know, put together a World Series championship team in 2021 and has built the best team in baseball in 2023, the Atlanta Braves. But he's not satisfied. He feels he needs to go out and supplement the bullpen, bring another big arm in. So Major League Baseball trade rumors have talked about getting Brad Hand from the Colorado Rockies. They could use a left-hander and maybe also pick up Randall Grichuk to fill their gaping defensive hole in left field. But on Locked On Braves podcast, they brought up an even better trade rumor. What about the Braves going out and getting Josh Hader, the uber closer of the Padres? He can opt for free agency at the end of the year, so it's kind of a rental. He's only making $7 million, pretty reasonable. And San Diego's GM is A.J. Preller. Imagine A.J. Preller and Alex Anthopoulos pulling up a blockbuster trade. I may cry.
Man, if Atlanta lands Josh Hader, the whole National League might as well just take a seat. All right. Karen, we'll go to you next. Your 1 minute begins now.
So Daniel Greenberg on Twitter, who goes by the handle Chai Sports Updates, tweeted the following: Toronto Blue Jays showing strong interest in trading for Cubs starting pitcher Marcus Stroman, and he credits MLB's Bruce Levine for that tip. Well, I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like fake news to me. I mean, as we know, Marcus Stroman, and by the way, I might add that I'm still a big Marcus Stroman fan. I like him. His outspokenness doesn't bother me. And he was a terrific pitcher for the Blue Jays. He's been a terrific pitcher since his departure. They traded him away, and apparently their parting was not exactly friendly. For a lot of reasons, I really don't see the Blue Jays going out and getting him. He'd be a terrific addition to whatever team does trade for him, if somebody does. Kind of wish it was Toronto, but not going to happen.
Ooh, 1 minute on the nose.
Hitting the post.
Wow. And we're going to come back to this conversation for sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A little bit later on, because, yeah, that's an interesting one. Anyway, my 1 minute begins now. I want to talk about, of course, Shohei Ohtani. The world is abuzz, I guess, maybe. With the possibility that the Angels could consider trading him. I mean, the first thing is, duh. What else? Like, if you have the greatest baseball player on the planet right now and your team is a hot mess of garbage, obviously you're going to consider trying to rebuild yourself as quickly as possible. One name that I found very interesting is the Tampa Bay Rays. If they get involved, because he's only got something like $14 million left on his deal, so very palatable for the Rays, but if they are in any way, shape, or form involved, they have to be a heavy favorite. They have the farm system to back that up. They can eat the salary for this season, excuse me, and then try their luck at spending $700 million or whatever it's going to take in the offseason. That'll be even more of a frenzy, but watch out for the next couple of weeks because it's going to be fun. Shohei Ohtani. Can you imagine? And you know what? Just like if Atlanta gets Josh Hader, if Tampa Bay gets Shohei Ohtani, I'm done. It's just over. Call it a day and move on. Man, what a world we live in. Anyway, let's talk about some trade deadline stories here. We've got a couple of interesting ones to start with, and I think, Steve, maybe we'll start with yours, given that you kind of, your MLB Minute talking about Josh Hader and the bullpen in Atlanta might be a good idea to start there here in Toronto. So just to kind of give everybody some context here, each of us kind of chose one particular story or topic that the Blue Jays should think about or whatever have you when we each brought those to the table. We kind of gave each other just a heads up, but we haven't really discussed these in much depth at all because we decided to save that for you, our lovely viewers and watchers and listeners and everybody else except us. So, Steve, your topic that you want to talk about today is the bullpen. Have at it, buddy.
Well, more specifically, I want to talk about, do the Blue Jays need to pick up an elite reliever at the deadline? And this only really popped into my head for the first time when Jordan Romano tweaked his back in the All-Star game. He still hasn't pitched, after the All-Star game. I don't think it's a thing for an alarm. And it's people, if you're worried, it just, it's okay. But it's one thing to not have your closer available for a 3-game series coming out of the All-Star break against the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's a whole other thing if you would lose your closer in September or in October in a playoff race. You can't just say, well, it will be okay. We'll just mix and match it. And the biggest problem is in this market, relievers are always, prime targets at the deadline. But in this market, with all of the surprise teams in playoff spots and all these supposed to be contenders now having to scramble to catch up, the price tag is really high. If you want to feast on tuna and swordfish steaks, you don't take your fishing pole with worms over to the kiddie pool. Okay, you actually have to go out and do some deep sea fishing. And I wonder, do the Blue Jays have a stomach for that? Because they're going to have to pay way above comfort level for guys. I know there's left-handers like Brad Hand has been talked about. We already saw Chapman get traded by the Royals. Amir Garrett has now been DFA'd. I mean, I don't think you can wait and sign him at league minimum, so that's not a big deal. But what about guys like David Robertson or Scott Barlow at Kansas City? I mean, everybody's going to want Michael Fulmer in Chicago. You can go on down the list. Karen had mentioned on Sunny Side of the Dome, I believe it was her last show, but maybe it was 2 shows ago, perhaps going out and trying to get Kendall Graveman and Liam Hendricks.
That was our show.
Oh, was it our show?
Yeah.
I guess I don't pay as much attention as I thought I do. Anyway. But I mean, honestly, that would be awesome. But you're going to have to be willing to pay that cost. If you're going to make sure that, God forbid, that this back becomes an issue throughout the whole year and you might be missing Romano at key times, you have to be able to not flinch and make that move and pay the price. Unfortunately, our GM is Blinky Atkins. So I don't know that not flinching is going to be an issue.
Blinky. Oh God, I'm done. Oh, Blinky. All right. So listening to you talk, Steve, I think that there's a couple of things that I would kind of that come to mind for me anyway. The first is there a need, first of all, for basically a second closer? And so for me, I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and it's got nothing to do with Jordan Romano's back.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely nothing to do with Jordan Romano whatsoever. He's still the closer on this Blue Jays team, and that should not and will not change. However, what does concern me is when you look at the nature of a playoff series, you want to throw your best arms out there. And right now, the Toronto Blue Jays need another best arm in that bullpen. If you have heaven forbid, Kevin Gausman can go 5 innings or whatever, 6 innings, you still have got 3 more that you have to make up for. I'm not asking Jordan Romano to pitch all 3 innings, right? So that's insane to me. I would rather have Jordan Romano and Eric Swanson and then, fill in the blank here as well. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not even necessarily, knock on wood about injuries so much as just having the right tools in the shed when the time comes. So that's the first thing that I would say to that. Karen, do you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much I think we're on the same page here. For me, when you look at the rotation, a bat, the bullpen. The bullpen, for a number of reasons, is where I really want them to go out and get somebody who's having a good season, who can help them win. Now, I mean, to me, like I've been saying all these phenomenal stats about how well the Blue Jays bullpen is doing, and that's great news. But to me, there are 5 guys down in that bullpen who I trust: Jordan Romano, Tim Meza, Eric Swanson, Nate Pearson, and Trevor Richards. 5 guys is not going to be enough to win you a World Series. I want more. I want the Blue Jays bullpen to be so scary that opposing teams' hitters say, oh God, here comes their bullpen. Doesn't really matter who, we don't have much of a chance against those guys. So I want them to improve. I want them to fortify. I don't want to be watching Mitch White in Game 7 of the World Series and have an experience like yesterday, praying to God that he can do something and he can't do anything.
So if we're watching Mitch White, it won't be Game 7 of the World Series. I can tell you that right now. That's my feeling. But one thing that I wanted to, and Steve, I'm going to kind of throw this question to you here, is, listening to, you're not going to be able to rely on one guy in the postseason the way, Andrew Miller did in the past, right? There's that one guy, just bring him in, ride him as much as you can. You're not going to be able to do that. That doesn't happen every year. That's kind of a one-off, right? So my question, though, Steve, is where does Nate Pearson fit into that whole conversation? Because in theory, Nate should be able to go multiple innings and all of that stuff. So for you, Steve, where does Nate fit in?
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to talk about, if you bring in another elite bullpen arm, a closer, 1A as opposed to Romano, it opens up a lot of possibilities. I mean, you can bring Pearson in, let's say in the 5th, 6th, 7th, do that Andrew Miller kind of role, and vice versa. We know if it's a left-hander, Tim Mays is going to pitch. He's the guy that's going to pitch if there's a series of left-handers coming in, no matter what the inning is. Even though you hope to keep him back to the 8th, in essence, he's gonna pitch wherever it is. And for whatever reason, they wait until there's 2 outs in the inning, and then have him only get 1 out, and then they pull him. But you could also, let's just use David Robertson as an example. They go out and get David Robertson. He's had a pretty good year. He has experience, postseason experience in high leverage situations. So you're in a playoff game and you're coming in the 6th inning or 7th inning, and you've got the core, the middle of the batting order coming up for your opponent. In theory, you can then, a la the Andrew Miller theory, you can bring Jordan Romano in, get those outs, because those are probably more important outs than what's going to happen in the 9th inning, depending on the situation. And then you don't have to worry about burning him out. You would then have a Pearson or a Swanson or your closer 1A there to fill that thing. And that's really, La Russa was great at that. I mean, when he was still managing before he went senile with the White Sox, he kept calling for Dennis Eckersley. What? He's not, what? Where's Dennis? But
that fake news was later.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's fake news, but still. But so I think getting that really big arm is important. Now, I know the Blue Jays aren't going to pay the price for, let's say, a Josh Hader. But if you bring a Josh Hader in, Hader has done that pitch to 7th and 8th inning and had somebody else close. So again, you've got guys that do that. If they're gonna have Nate do that role, though, and they're going to start giving him more responsibility, they need to start doing it now. I mean, they kind of did in the Diamondback series, but they really have to put him in more high leverage situations. It's still early enough-ish that if he struggles, okay, then you pull it back and he's just a bulk reliever. But you can't just say, well, in theory, we're going to do that with Nate. They have to actually do. Don't say you want to do that and give Nate that opportunity. Just give it to him. Don't say you're gonna do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such an interesting. They need I guess it's not crazy to say they need a bullpen arm, but how they go about that, because that's the thing. And he's saying like, well, they're not going to pay for a Josh Hader and so on and so on. Karen, do you believe that? Do you believe that they're not going to fork over the capital required to land a Josh Hader?
I don't know. I mean, people seem to think that for a number of reasons that it might not be a huge trade deadline this year for the Blue Jays. I mean, I don't see them going out and making a huge blockbuster. I mean, they're not going to trade away Ricky Tiedemann. I think other players, other prospects could be in play. I mean, I think this is an important year for the Blue Jays. We could lose Matt Chapman this offseason. Like this, I think they really have to try to win now with this group. And, like go out and get somebody who's really good. And if it means paying a price, then pay the price. Again, like why the Blue Jays have come so far. They've made trades, they've given up prospects, they've signed guys to large contracts. Like this is not the time to be saying, okay, now we have to start playing conservatively when they've done all that they've done. Like if there's a final piece to the puzzle, they have to go out and get it. And I mean, I like Pearson. I'm so thrilled that he's having a terrific season. So far, he doesn't seem to be as dominant when they use him on back-to-back days. I think yesterday was the first day he'd had some success, and even then, apparently, his velocity was down a bit. So. I don't know. I mean, I think they can rely on him. At the same time, they have to watch his usage a bit. So that is why I keep saying, you've got 5 guys that you can rely on, but what happens when you've used all 5 on back-to-back days? What are you doing on day number 3? I want other guys that you can bring in and you can trust. And part of me wants to believe Jay Jackson can be a part of that. I don't know if he can or not.
You know what? I think, Karen, you have the best point of the show right there, and that there is no next year. And if the first thing I hear about whatever trade they make is years of control, I swear to God I'm going to lose it, right? Because holy hell, that even with Eric Swanson, that was one of the things, right? Oh, well, we've got years. Shut up! This is about 2023, and you're absolutely right. Matt Chapman is gone, and there's a big gaping hole there. You need to. Oh, Karen, now you got me fired up, because that's just that. I just started thinking, like, because what does this front office go after? They go after the deals that may help them now, but also give them future flexibility. And I'm like, geez, I can't sit here and listen to years of control at this point. It's got to be about the next 3-4 months, and that's it for me. So trade whoever you have to. I don't even care. Ryan Mueller, our Jays from the Couch minor league guru, whatever you want to call him, he will tell you that prospects are sure to come up and fill in big league rosters, but they are also to be traded. That's what they're for. So trade whoever you need to. Do not focus on 2024, 2025, 2026, and expect me to be okay with it. Go ahead, Steve.
Just to wrap up the reliever type of thing, at least temporarily, there are 2 targets out there that the Blue Jays could realistically try to secure based on what, in the case of the Kansas City Royals and Scott Barlow, they tipped their hand about what they're looking for. They got, yes, a major league starter who started this week for them, but they also got a 17-year-old prospect in the Dominican Summer League, Aroldis Chapman. Then he was the key to the deal. They want to, under the analytical process that Kansas City is now obsessed with, they want projectable, lower-level talent, and that's where the Blue Jays trade prospects actually probably are. They don't have major league ready things, so they can't go for Hader. I'm not even sure they can go to the White Sox. I don't know how patient the White Sox are going to be. And the Mets, Steve Cohen came out and said, we want to rebuild our farm system. We want to go out and add that. So you could go and probably give a couple prospects, at low A or high A for a David Robertson and be able to fix the now without totally killing your tomorrow. So
and Steve Cohen feels that way because he has a whole building full of minor league people who are doing nothing because they're just sitting there with their feet up because he's just signing everybody anyway. You don't need to develop anybody. Screw it. Draft, what's that? Doesn't matter.
Anyway. Apparently, we have, I've been told, a fair bit of talent at Vancouver. So,
exactly right.
Something there.
All right. So, Karen, let's move on to your topic. We're going to switch from the bullpen to the other side of the plate. Go ahead.
Right. So, as we know, over the last couple of seasons, one of the strengths of the Blue Jays has been their offense, their ability to hit and score lots of runs. And then they kind of redid, they renovated the stadium and they renovated the team in the offseason. And it's a different brand of Blue Jays baseball. So the pitching and the defense overall are better. Unfortunately, at times, they've really struggled to score runs. A lot of people believe that one of the biggest, if not their biggest needs at or before the trade deadline is to go out and bring a good hitter onto this team, put them into this lineup, help fortify, help them score, help them hopefully not get no hit again. And this is my question. If you trade for one guy, that's one guy, and there's 9 guys in a lineup, how much do each of you believe in? And once you've each had your say, circle back, because I'll complete this train of thought here with my own thoughts. But how much or how little do you believe that adding one bat from outside the organization will make a difference to this team?
Steve, do you want to go first, or?
I think just like actual hitting situational. I think acquisitions are situational too. I think it can actually make a difference if you have the right bat.
Yeah. Overall, I don't think it's going to make a whole boatload of difference at all. Basically, they have a fourth, they have another position player that they don't even use. Right, like this whole lineup from top to bottom there isn't a whole lot of variation in there. As far as room for somebody else is what I'm saying. So I don't know that one bat's going to make a big difference, particularly if that bat is Nelson friggin' Cruz. However, regardless, I'm not going to go down because I'm just answering your question. Depending on the bat, if it's a Shohei Ohtani, obviously that's a game changer, but it's not going to happen. So I don't see much of an impact here. And we've made a lot about hitting against left-handed pitching and stuff like that. And Bob Ritchie has a great article coming out. He has some targets identified that may help in that area. Comes out tomorrow morning. This is Monday, so Tuesday morning at Jays from the Couch. I recommend it. But Karen, to answer your question, honestly, I just don't know that it will have that much of an impact.
Right. I mean, I have to say, I sort of look at it from a couple of different viewpoints. I don't think that trading for one hitter, even if you find a hitter that's really having a terrific season and he's on a team that's willing to sell and the Jays can add him and everything's wonderful, I don't see that by itself is going to make a heck of a lot of difference because, as I said, it's as we know in baseball, you've got a 9-player lineup. So you're hopefully improving one spot in your lineup. I did the math and I was saying, so 1 out of 9, maybe you're 11% better, but really that's not even going to be the case because whoever you trade for won't be batting 1,000 and whoever he replaces isn't batting 0. They don't have have anybody batting 0. So, I mean, you've got a little bit of an improvement there, maybe. And then they say hitting is contagious. I mean, if you bring in reinforcements, does that make anybody around him better? I think I don't feel that all is lost from this Blue Jays team, but where their offense really needs to get better, I think their existing players need to pull up their bootstraps. I mean, Matt Chapman is finally showing signs of life with the bat again. He's been a phenomenal defender all season. He was great in April, and then for 2 months his bat fell asleep. And now he's finally starting to do better. We need the talent that they already have, that they've already acquired, to go out there and do what they're capable of on a daily basis, day in and day out. I'm going to throw something out there just for our audience to think about. Do I necessarily see this happening now, nor should it happen, but just possibilities. So do you remember a few years ago, back in 2020, the Blue Jays were really looking for some offense, particularly from the catcher position, and they brought up a young Alejandro Kirk who had never played above A ball, and just kind of threw him into a playoff race. And okay, let's see what you can do. He was known for his bats. Let's see what he could do in a few games against Major League pitching. And I was a little surprised that he succeeded as well as he did. But I mean, before this year, Alejandro Kirk has been a terrific story with the bat, and I still believe at some point he'll return to that. Sooner than later would be good. But as far as young prospects, and those who are familiar with the Blue Jays and a little bit about their farm system, you might have heard about a prospect named Orelvis Martinez. Orelvis Martinez is 21 years old. He actually played at Double-A last year, and other than hitting a bunch of home runs, not a lot else went right for him last year. So he repeated Double-A to start off this season, and after a pretty cold month of April, he just turned everything around. He was doing everything a lot better, and the organization has rewarded him now with a promotion to Triple-A. One thing that the Blue Jays hitters haven't done all that well this year is hitting left-handed pitching. Orelvis Martinez, I know this is in the minor leagues, but he has an OPS of 1.054 against left-handed pitching. Do the Blue Jays roll the dice and bring Orelvis up for a look and see what he can do against Major League pitching? If they do, it could backfire. He could be way overmatched, and it'd be a huge setback for him, but something interesting to think about. What if they go that route?
Also, might be an opportunity to showcase him for ahead of the trade deadline, if that's what you're thinking. But I did, when you said call him up, I didn't necessarily pick up on when you meant. But Orelvis Martinez would be shop him. I don't believe that at this point that he's ready to take over third base for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024. Therefore, if that's not the role he's going to fill, I've already said it. For me, it's about the next 3 or 4 months. And if that gets them closer to a championship and he ends up playing somewhere else and hits 40 home runs for, 6 years straight in Major League Baseball, good for him. I'll cheer for him, but I'll also enjoy, the postseason run in this right now. So that's kind of where I am. Maybe it's a showcasing thing. Maybe but maybe he's also earned it too, right? Steve, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the Orelvis Martinez thing is just fascinating. But in Blue Jays history, there have been numerous occasions where picking up one bat changed the complete complexion of the team's hitting and ability to score runs, or improve their better ability to score runs. Certainly on the championship years that happened. I'm thinking back to like 1983, 84, 85 with Cliff Johnson. who was brought in specifically. He was technically a catcher, but I don't think he would be able to catch a piano if you threw at him. But he was a terrific hitter. So in the DH slot against left-hand pitching, he completely changed that lineup. So much so that where it was almost impossible to imagine the Blue Jays chasing down the Tigers in '84, their offense improved so much because of the situational hitting that I was talking about earlier, that they made it a run. I mean, there was still some distance, but they made a really good run at the Tigers after that big start. So I'm a big believer. If you pick the right guy, I think it can work. And just to get, since Karen has a conversation starting, I want to throw out Randall Grichuk against left-hand, great defender. So if you're putting him out there, that's great. If he is hot, if you get him on a hot, and he's been hot all year, except for when he was out hurt for 6 weeks, or I think it was 4 or 6 weeks, he's been hot all year. He's been consistent all year against lefties and righties. Bring him back. It's not going to cost much. His contract's going to expire. Bring him back. The Rockies, again, are looking for their GM was their former director of scouting. They want projectable lower-level minor leaguers. Bring Randall back. Yes, Karen.
Pass. Go ahead, Karen.
There's been a bit of chat about Grichuk lately, and I wondered if he might be having a really good season overall, and if he is, how much of a factor would Coors Field be? So I did a little poking around online, and anybody want to take a guess as to his weighted runs created plus on the road versus left-handed pitching?
There's no such stat. I refuse to address it. Give me batting average, homers, RBIs. Okay, we'll talk about it. Weighted, it's not a stat. It doesn't tell you what's happening in games, in situations. Again, situational hitting. But tell us anyway.
So,
120.
90.
90.
90. There's a Coors Field boost to his overall numbers, which are fairly good until you remember the Coors Field and the altitude, and no thanks. Randall Grichuk is still Randall Grichuk. They traded him away for a reason.
For me, Randall Grichuk, and I don't like when people who love Randall Grichuk really love Randall Grichuk, and I don't knock that, because when Randall Grichuk is on and he's on a roll and all of that stuff, I see the value that everybody's talking about. The problem is, for me personally, is that if you're trading for him at the July trade deadline, you're banking on the next, all of August and September, that he's going to get hot and be hot, more so than somebody else that you're trading for. And that, for me, is where it falls apart, because we finally got rid of Randall Grichuk and his strikeouts. And now we've got Matt Chapman in his, but that's a whole other story. But don't ever talk smack about Matt Chapman, just so we're clear. But as far as Grichuk goes, I just got tired of watching the futility sandwiched in a little bit of success sandwiched in there, right? That's for me why I'm so anti Randall Grichuk, and I'm sure he's a perfectly lovely guy, gorgeous AF, but I'm not going to hold my breath for the Blue Jays to trade for him.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Here's another interesting possibility. Maybe they could trade for Stroman and Grichuk and watch the fireworks fly. The two of them had a bit of a Twitter feud a couple years ago.
Yeah. No, that's okay. All right, let's switch gears here, because we don't want to run out of time. The topic I wanted to talk about was the starting pitching situation in Toronto. We're looking at Alek Manoah come back, had a great start and all of that. Ryu's looking good, looking like he may be coming back shortly, whatever shortly means in baseball terms when you're recovering from Tommy John, but soon-ish. And that creates, first of all, a log jam at the starting position, and then then there are rumors like Karen mentioned earlier with Marcus Stroman, and all that stuff. And so really, when you're looking at it, what do the Blue Jays do with their starting pitching situation? Are they going to run 6 starters? Maybe you can see that happening, especially, easing Ryu back into things. Maybe. But at some point, something's going to give. And I can't realistically see them going, just keeping 6 starters until the end of the season. So how do we see that playing out? Is there a bullpen candidate in there? And Steve, I'm going to start with you because I think you have an answer for that bullpen item, because really somebody's got to go, realistically speaking. And in the playoffs, even more people got to go. But we'll deal with that later. So, Steve, what is your thought about the starting pitching logjam?
Well, for me, I don't view it as a logjam at all. When Ryu comes back, he's a bulk reliever. And I think he will be more valuable in that role to the Blue Jays, being able to step in if one of the starters struggles, than have him come in. When he is at his peak of health, he struggled to complete 5 innings. At his best as a Blue Jay, even as a Dodger, he got to the 5th inning. If he got in the 6th inning, it was time to pop the champagne corks and throw a parade. Okay, I can't tell you the last time he had a quality start. I really can't. And I mean, I love Ryu. It's the way he approaches hitters. He's so methodical. He's already thinking what he's going to throw if the count is 2-2 before the guy even steps into the batter's box. He just thinks that way. I think that would benefit him in the short burst, 2 innings, maybe even 3 innings if need be. I think you get the most out of Hyun-Jin Ryu at this stage of his career, coming off major arm surgery, and I think it does benefit the Blue Jays in the long run. So let's say Kikuchi struggles. He's only going 4 or 5 innings. It's just theoretically. Ryu comes in, picks up the slack so that your bullpen is at the back of the bullpen is still in its order. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Worrying about where Ryu is going to start in a rotation or go into a 6-man rotation, you can't do that when 3/5 of your rotation already is not going to perform as well with the extra day's rest as if they want regular. Gausman wants regular work. Chris Bassett wants regular work. I think Barrios works better on regular work. So rather than mess all that around, Ryu is a bullpen piece. If you pick up a Stroman in a trade, great. Kikuchi now is also another bullpen piece so that we can actually keep Tim Maze's left arm attached to his shoulder, and rather than have him pitch. It seems like he's pitched every single game for the Blue Jays. I know that he hasn't. It just seems that way. So, I think really for me, it's not a logjam. If anything, if you do add, it actually maybe slides pitchers into roles that they will be more successful for a pennant run and a playoff deep run than worrying about what their statistics are or what their roles should be.
Tim Meza has been in 42 games already, at 31 innings pitched.
42 games this week?
This week, yeah. So interesting, because I would argue, Steve, that I wonder if the Toronto Blue Jays would actually do that to a Hyun-Jin Ryu and give him kind of a lesser set schedule than the kind of routine that a starter would be on, as opposed to maybe Kikuchi being the odd man out in that regard. I'm not suggesting that one is better than the other, but I'm just thinking about how the management of the people, if they would actually do that to Ryu, that is something I just don't know. It seems to me that a veteran like that, and really the first big signing that they did after their rebuild, all of that coming into play, I don't know if they would relegate him to the bullpen.
It doesn't matter. Okay, this isn't when they signed him. This is the pennant race at the end of 2023. And I mean, and if I'm Ross Atkins or Mark Shapiro and Ryu or his agent comes to me and says, well, I don't know that I'm comfortable with that role, I would just have one word. Wah. Like, I mean, it's it. Wah. Wah, 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 wah. You do what we're paying you for. We appreciate what you did through all of this time and how hard you worked. We need you to be in the bullpen. If we need you to be a bullpen catcher, that's what you're going to do to fulfill the rest of your contract. Wah.
Karen and Steve, I just so we're clear, like I don't necessarily disagree.
I'm just trying to make a point. We're always talking about, well, it's all in. It's whatever the team needs to do for right now. No player is exempt from that. Every player has to accept a reduced role potentially if a trade comes in order to make this the best team possible to first make the playoffs and potentially, assuming there's a bunch of plane crashes with other major league teams, make a deep run to the World Series.
No, I don't disagree with you. That's why I think George Springer should be moved down in the lineup. But, like those are the kind of things. So, Karen, where are you? Like Ryu, first of all, like I think that's kind of like you're inserting him into this whole mix here. Do you see him going the bullpen route, the multi-inning thing? Or do you see somebody else, or do you see them sticking with the 6-man for a while?
Right. Yeah. I mean, as much as it pains me to say this, after that lovely little comment that you ended up with there, Steve, a lot of what you say about Ryu makes a lot of sense. And logically, for all of the reasons that you say, it could work very well if they did it that way. I don't think they're going to do it. One of the things that I myself try to do, I'm not saying anybody else doesn't do this, but I know that there are people out there who are more in the know than I am. And I try to pay attention to people who actually cover the Toronto Blue Jays for a living, because I assume that they've been told things that most of us just don't know. And I've heard people in the know on more than one occasion where Hyun-Jin Ryu is concerned say, when he comes back, he is not coming back to be a relief pitcher. He is not coming back to be a swingman. Hyun-Jin Ryu is a starting pitcher. I'm not saying that's necessarily the best plan for all the reasons that you said. You said makes sense, but I think what they're going to do is bring him back as a starting pitcher. And again, you don't really know. Have there already been conversations behind the scenes with Ryu and possibly with Scott Boras? And I mean, I'm with you in that the major league franchise is the employer and these guys are the employees, and the only big difference is they get paid a heck of a lot more money than most employees do. But when your employer tells you to do something within reason, you as the employee are supposed to do it. Doesn't always work that way. I think Ryu is going to be used in the rotation. I see them going with a 6-man rotation. And I mean, what we've heard is what I've heard, can't speak for anyone else, but that both Guzman and Bassett, they do a lot better with an extra day's rest. So as long as there isn't an off day in there, then this guarantees that, knock on wood, if everybody's healthy and stays with the 6-man rotation, then this guarantees them an extra days of rest. Maybe they'll do better that way. I mean, like you said, somebody like Ryu coming off of Tommy John surgery, maybe he could benefit from a workload that isn't insane, just kind of work him back into everything. And I mean, somebody made the comment recently, John Schneider said these things have a way of working themselves out. So there's a lot of question marks right now. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's reality in that we've got Alek Manoah, made a terrific start against the Detroit Tigers. We all want to see him go out there and keep doing more of the same. But that was against a weaker offensive team. We don't know how he's going to do for the rest of the season. There's questions now about Kevin Gausman's health. They're skipping him for the San Diego series. How much longer is he going to need to be out? And then there's Ryu himself. I mean, he's doing well in the minor leagues on his rehab assignment. How is that going to translate to going up against major league pitching? So if everybody's healthy and effective, you've got 6 starters. If something happens, then you've got your built-in insurance, so to speak. People have been talking all season about they don't have enough starting pitching depth. Well, here comes some starting pitching depth.
Yeah. And it, I mean, Schneider's right. Like, they do have a way of working themselves out. It just drives me crazy when somebody who's in charge of making decisions says that, because that cannot be your actual philosophy. What it is a way of downplaying it for outsiders and all of that stuff. And you're absolutely right, because we don't know if Alek Manoah is going to continue. We don't know when the bottom's going to fall out of Yusei Kikuchi. In all honesty, maybe it's just me, but I'm sitting here waiting for the implosion. And so, good on him for making me wait. I'll continue to wait. You just keep doing your thing, buddy. But you're right. There isn't a lot of, I think, uncertainty with the whole group. And I think that's kind of where, when you look ahead to their trade deadline, this is a different year than it has been in the past, where you need a Matt Chapman or whatever, or you need a David Price. Cool, go out and grab one. Well, we need a left hitter. Let's go get Ben Revere. There are fewer positions that are screaming for additions and big gaping holes. The biggest thing that they need in the next few weeks is for everybody to just kind of start playing up to their capabilities. And if they can do that, then look the hell out. And they only need some small, maybe some minor additions as opposed to, swinging for the fences. We've got a couple of comments here. I want to get to my buddy Christian Rao of Slasher Sports. Talking Baseball was talking about the Jays today, said they believe they are the team with the least needed tweaks come deadline. I don't know about that. About the least amount of needs. I would say Atlanta's in pretty good shape themselves. But if I'm looking ahead, I think that the minor tweaks are exactly right. And that's kind of just what I just said, right? Is that when you look up and down the lineup, you look at the roster, look all over the field, there aren't any glaring, gaping holes that are screaming for attention, right? So I think that's a good spot to be in. New Brunswick, Canada guy. Watching on YouTube again this week. Thanks, buddy, for tuning in. The Jays may need a 10-man pen by the end of the season, especially if Kikuchi and Manoah can only go a max 5 innings per start. Amen to that. We've got one more here. New Brunswick, Canada guy. A weak trade deadline would be Grichuk and Lorenzen and maybe Kendall Graveman. A strong deadline would be Stroman and Teo and Liam Hendricks. In 2015, they had the strongest trade deadline ever, and the Jays made it to the ALCS. And this is a New Brunswick, Canada guy lost me a little bit. Or Elvis could be Chapman's replacement next year, and I'm going to need convincing. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. Hello, Velvet. Velvet's rear end just decided to make an appearance on this show.
Yeah, it's perfect timing because it's like that Jaws fin coming across. Da-dum, da-dum. We're going to a 6-man rotation. Da-dum, da-dum. We're not going to trade for a hitter. Da-dum, da-dum.
If a black cat walks across your podcast, it will not jinx your trade deadline or the rest of your season.
Oh my God. And New Brunswick, Canada guy, please don't take that personally. That was not a Velvet's opinion about your thoughts there. Velvet does what Velvet wants to do, apparently. So. Oh man. Okay. We are just about out of time here. That was a lot of fun. I think we'll continue to kind of each bring a topic to the table and debate it and hash it out. I like that format a lot. But what I'd love even more is my favorite segment, and it is time, once again, for Jays from the Couch's fake Blue Jays news. Now, if you are new or whatever, it's fake, guys. We're just throwing a bunch of stuff out there because we think we're funny, and we have the microphones, so you have to listen. All right? It's just for fun. Anyway, here we go. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Shaun. Slow-moving summer storm systems have brought widespread flash flooding throughout the northeastern U.S. and has residents of the eastern provinces checking the skies and radars themselves. Meanwhile, Environment Canada has issued a neighborhood-specific drought emergency for the Rogers Centre and surrounding neighborhoods. Regional meteorologists Bob and Doug McKenzie warned serious power outages and lack of life-giving runs scored have rendered the home field of the Blue Jays a virtual wasteland. While constant breezes generated at the home plate area of Rogers Centre may bring relief from the heat, Environment Canada and European computer models project the emergency may need to be extended through October unless immediate steps are not taken to rectify the drought situation by August 1st. Team president Mark Shapiro dismissed a report by JFtC that GM Ross Atkins had confused the trade deadline with the term trade embargo. The Blue Jays GM reportedly dismissed trade offers proposed by James Click and Tony LaCava as impossible to pursue, given his misguided understanding of current business regulations governing trade and commerce between Canadian and U.S.-based businesses. The report on JFtC by writer Steve Heck is full of complete falsehoods, a visibly annoyed Shapiro told reporters. Ross is quite aware of the upcoming MLB trade deadline and how it works. He just hasn't picked up the phone yet. Shapiro also told the media that the Blue Jays organization is 110% in support of the Hollywood screenwriters and actors strikes. The Toronto Blue Jays management and on-field personnel are in complete alignment with the goals and actions taken by members of SAG-AFTRA. To demonstrate our support, we will continue to not write out any trade proposals or lineup cards our computers have not already generated. And all calls for personnel changes in the front office will be ignored. You will all agree the ways Ross Atkins continues to act as an MLB general manager is a performance worthy of an Academy Award or Emmy for Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. So I guess that means no acting GM title for James Click in the near future. Back to you, Shaun.
The baseball world is about to go crazy if the LA Angels do in fact shop Shohei Ohtani at the trade deadline. They'd be just plain dumb if they didn't. At least field offers. So Jays from the Couch reached out to the Angels owner Art Moreno to discuss this. Moreno's very much a hands-on owner, so we went right to the top to gauge a potential deal with the Blue Jays. Moreno conceded that there were in fact conversations at the highest level of each team, but talks were at an impasse, says Moreno, when Rogers Communication offered up GM Ross Atkins as part of the deal. Moreno said, "I've been in business long enough to know when I'm being played. If we deal Ohtani, it'll be to build a winner here in LA. We know Atkins can't do that." I also found it odd that Rogers called collect. It was recently reported that the Toronto Blue Jays could be in the running to host the 2025 All-Star Game, which is obviously a huge bit of news. The Jays haven't hosted an All-Star Game since 1991, which would put us 34 years since the last one. Jays from the Couch caught up with Rob Manfred to ask about the big gap between hosting. Manfred said, "They try to give everyone a chance." When Jays from the Couch pointed out that there are 30 teams, so it shouldn't take 34 years, he then replied, "Okay, you got me. People kept talking about this place called Toronto, but I thought it was just a joke, like finding the key to the batter's box. As it turns out, we've had a major league team there since 1977. Now I have 2 years to learn about this mythical land. And," he added, "it's new ground, you know. It'll give us time to figure out how to have the Midsummer Classic in 12 inches of snow." And that has been fake Blue Jays news. All right, I'm still laughing at the McKenzie brothers. Oh my God, that got me. I did not expect that one. That was good.
Well, I was hoping it would just kind of subtly sneak in, and then people would catch it like later and say, "Oh."
Yeah, no, it was perfect. It was perfect. All right. That brings us to the end of episode 335. I want to thank you both for sharing your time and your thoughts and your wisdom here on the podcast with me. It's always great fun when we get together. We're off next week. I'm away for a family wedding. It's not a wedding within the family. Obviously, that would be weird. But it's my cousin is getting married. That's where I'm going. We're away next week. That was a long way to say that, and I apologize to everybody out there. But no Jays from the Couch podcast next week. I want to thank everybody for watching at home, whether it's on the audio version on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. We do appreciate that you found us and that you continue to listen every week. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and for Christian for chiming in, and the New Brunswick, Canada guy as well. Not sure about Orelvis, but that's a topic for another day. So on behalf of Steve and Karen and everybody at Jays from the Couch, and poor old Ross Atkins and Velvet, Velvet's rear end. That's right. Oh my God. Anyway, on behalf of everybody here at Jays from the Couch, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And this is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.